I poured 7 years of devotion into my relationship with Ava, only to realize I was nothing more than a placeholder for her first love. She spent our entire relationship trying to mold me into his image, completely disregarding who I actually was. As soon as her first love returned to the States, I knew it was time to walk away and give myself a chance to find someone who would actually choose me. It was on our 7th anniversary that the truth finally hit me. I was just a stand-in for another man. The haircut she insisted I get was his, the clothes she bought for me were exactly his style, and she couldn't even remember my own personal preferences. For 7 years, I told myself she was just forgetful. The reality was much worse. She had convinced herself that my tastes were identical to his. It wasn't until my birthday, when she brought home a cake specifically because it was his favorite, that I couldn't ignore it anymore. The second her phone rang, she dropped everything and rushed out the door without a second thought. After 7 years, I finally saw my life for what it was, a beautiful one-sided delusion. It was time to step aside and leave the stage for the two of them. My phone screen was still open to a photo from last night, sitting right next to the message thread between Ava and another man. This was the guy she had been pining over for years, the one she kept locked away in her heart while she was with me. I pulled up my contacts and called my mother. "Hey Mom, about that setup you mentioned, I've decided I'd like to meet her." There was a long silence on the other end before she finally spoke. "You're actually serious? What changed your mind? I thought you said Ava was the only woman you'd ever marry." Remembering how certain I had been about Ava made me feel like a complete fool. My mother noticed my silence and gracefully changed the subject. "Well, she's actually moving back to the city in about 2 weeks, so I'll set something up for you then." Right after I hung up, I heard the front door click open. Ava walked in with a bright smile, trailing a gust of cold Chicago air behind her as she held up a cake box. "I had to wait in line forever to get this for you. Come on, try a piece and tell me what you think." I took the box from her and pulled off the lid. Just as I suspected, it was matcha. I didn't say a word as I closed the box and set it aside. Ava slid onto the couch next to me and looped her arm through mine. "What's that face for? Who upset my James?" I looked down, fighting back the sting of tears. We had been together for 7 years, and I had told her 1,000 times that I hated matcha. I couldn't stand the taste of it. My favorite has always been vanilla, but she never seemed to hear me. Every single year, she brought home matcha. I used to make excuses for her, telling myself she was just busy or that the bakery had run out of other flavors. Then, 3 days ago, everything changed. Ava had left her phone on the coffee table while she hopped in the shower, and a Twitter notification popped up on the screen. It was a post that said, "Matcha cake might be the greatest invention of all time. I seriously can't get enough of it." I noticed that Ava had specifically turned on alerts for this user. My heart began to race for no reason, as if a truth I had suppressed for years was finally clawing its way to the surface. I pulled out my own phone and searched for the handle K, scrolling back through months of his posts. His feed was filled with photos of a man who lived life to the fullest. He was charming, outgoing, and undeniably handsome, with pictures from his travels all over Europe. He had a magnetic energy that was impossible to ignore. He had been living in London, but his latest post mentioned he was moving back home. His name was Ethan Vance. Ethan and Ava. Even their names sounded like they belonged together. I went back to Ava's own Twitter and looked at her likes, and suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Ava never actually liked sweets or boba or cake. It was never a thing. The truth hit me. Ethan was the one who loved matcha. I finally understood why Ava had been so obsessed with me after our very first meeting. I understood why, for 7 years, she had been so attentive yet always insisted on calling me E as a nickname. I finally understood why she kept forcing matcha on me despite my constant protests. She wasn't seeing James. She was looking at Ethan. Ava didn't even notice the look on my face as she tried to coax a smile out of me. "You've been working too hard lately," she said playfully. "Sugar always helps. This bakery is famous for their matcha. Just have one bite." A heavy weight settled in my chest, making it hard to draw a breath. I finally snapped. "I told you I hate matcha," I yelled. Ava jumped back, her eyes wide with shock at my sudden outburst. Right then, her phone started buzzing. As soon as she saw the caller ID, her entire face transformed. Really? Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm coming right now. Her hands were trembling as she hung up. She didn't even look at me or offer an explanation before she grabbed her purse and ran out the door. Standing alone in the silent living room, I whispered to the empty air, "But today is my birthday." A cold feeling of dread washed over me. I pulled up Ethan's Twitter one more time and saw a new post at the top of his feed. It was a picture of the terminal at O'Hare with the caption, "Finally back on American soil." Today wasn't about my birthday. It was about Ethan's arrival. My time as a stand-in was officially over. I spent the rest of the night packing my life into boxes. I gathered my clothes, my books, and all the little mementos I had collected over the last 7 years. I had spent years believing this was our home, a sanctuary we had built together. Now I realized that everything here, including myself, was just temporary. It was time for me to clear out and make room for the man she actually wanted here. Ava didn't come back until the next morning, her hair damp from the rain. She caught my eye for a split second before looking away, a tight, nervous smile on her face. "You're up early," she remarked. "You should have stayed in bed." "I wanted to catch the morning air," I said flatly. She nodded quickly. "Right. Well, I'm gonna hop in the shower." "Ava," I called out as she turned away. "Yeah? What is it, James?" I kept my voice steady, betraying nothing. "You were out late last night." "Oh, yeah. Work was a nightmare," she said, her words coming out too fast. A client dropped a huge project on us at the last minute, and the whole team had to pull an all-nighter. I noticed how she kept piling on the details, the classic tale of someone desperate to make a lie sound believable. Usually, Ava was a woman of few words, even when she was trying to be sweet. "I was just wondering," I said, watching her closely. "You left with your trench coat last night. Where is it?" "Oh, I must have left it at the office," she replied without missing a beat. She looked relieved that I hadn't pushed further. "Yeah, it's just sitting on my chair. Don't worry, I'm fine." "Right? Go get cleaned up then," I said. She stepped toward me and reached out to ruffle my hair. "Look at you, being all sweet and concerned for me," she teased. I tilted my head away from her touch and turned toward the window. "Just go. You'll catch a cold in those wet clothes." Her hand hung awkwardly in the air for a second before she looked down at her damp shirt. "What? You don't like me all soaked?" she joked. "Don't worry. I'll keep my distance so I don't get you wet too." A few moments later, I heard the shower start. I had never been the type to snoop through her phone, and she never felt the need to hide it, usually just tossing on the coffee table. As I sat there, the screen suddenly flickered to life. It was an iMessage from Ethan. "Ava, did you make it back okay? I just finished washing your clothes and put them on the rack to dry." I had felt it in my gut the moment she ran out the door yesterday. The sheer panic in her eyes told me everything I needed to know, but there was a massive difference between a suspicion and seeing the proof with my own eyes. I pulled up Ethan's Twitter on my own phone. He had just uploaded a video. It showed the two of them, hand in hand, sprinting through a downpour and laughing like teenagers. At the end of the clip, they were still holding hands, and Ava was doubled over with laughter. It was a look of pure, unadulterated joy that she had never once shown me. The bathroom door opened, and Ava stepped out, drying her hair with a towel. "Was that my phone?" she asked. "It buzzed," I replied. She lunged for the phone, snatching it out of my hand with a frantic energy that caught me completely off guard. After tapping out a quick reply, she seemed to realize how aggressive she'd been. "Sorry," she said, her voice sounding forced. "Client is breathing down my neck for some files. It was just a work thing. I didn't hurt you, did I?" "I'm fine," I said, cutting her off. "Do what you need to do. I'm going for a walk." As I turned toward the door, she caught my wrist. "James, are you mad at me?" "No," I said. It wasn't even anger anymore. It was just a hollow feeling of nothingness. Her eyes drifted to the corner of the room, landing on the stack of heavy-duty trash bags I'd filled. "Did you do some spring cleaning? That's a lot of stuff to toss." "Yeah," I replied. "Whatever," she said with a shrug. "I'll help you carry those down later." "Ava," I said quietly. "Yeah. Did you notice anything different in the bathroom?" She looked puzzled. "No, why? Are we out of soap?" I can pick some up later if you want. I just gave a small nod. Our bathroom had always been filled with matching sets, towels, toothbrushes, even our slippers. My blue towel had always hung right next to her pink one. Last night, I had stripped the bathroom of everything that belonged to me. My towel, my toothbrush, my slippers, and tossed them in the trash. She hadn't even noticed they were gone. Maybe she was just distracted by Ethan, or maybe she never cared to begin with. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. My life with Ava and the place I had mistakenly called home was over. I remembered a weekend a few months back when I went with her to a college reunion. I had always been curious about this Ethan she mentioned so often, wondering what kind of man could hold such a grip on her heart. The karaoke bar was already loud and crowded by the time we arrived. One of Ava's old friends, Sarah, threw an arm around her shoulders. "You're finally here. Ethan's already inside, so I guess you're finally getting your wish tonight." Ava looked panicked and quickly cut her off. "Sarah, stop it. Don't say things like that." Sarah just laughed harder. "Oh, come on. Everyone knows you've been obsessed with Ethan since freshman year." Then she finally noticed me standing there and blinked in surprise. "Wait, who's this?" Ava looked deeply uncomfortable as she made the introduction. "This is James, my boyfriend." Sarah looked genuinely confused. "Your boyfriend? Since when? I thought you were waiting for Ethan to come back from London." Ava didn't say anything, and a heavy silence settled over us. That was when a man who looked like he'd stepped off a magazine cover walked toward us. It was Ethan Vance. He gave us a dazzling smile. "Who's the one with the boyfriend?" Sarah waved him overexcitedly. "Over here. Ava's claiming she's taken, but I'm not buying it." Meeting Ethan in person finally gave me the chance to see what all the fuss was about. The man was undeniably striking. I could see why Ava had been hung up on him for so long. Ethan looked me up and down, his gaze cold and full of condescending curiosity. "Julie, is this guy really your boyfriend?" he asked, using a nickname I'd never heard her use. Ava hesitated, looking like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I decided to throw her a lifeline. "I'm just stopping by to grab something I left here the other night," I said. Ava looked visibly relieved, though she still seemed stunned by my lie. Sarah tilted her head. "What did you leave?" "A pair of cufflinks," I replied, keeping my tone casual. Sarah waved me off. "Well, the cleaning crew has already been through here, but you can ask at the front desk." I nodded and started walking toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Sarah laughing. "What was that about, Ava? Trying to make Ethan jealous? The guy's just a delivery boy, and you're using him as a human shield?" She turned her attention back to Ethan. "Look at what you're doing to her, Ethan. It's been years. At least give the girl a straight answer." Ethan's voice was cool and indifferent. "Julie and I are just best friends, Sarah. Don't make it weird." I stopped in my tracks and looked back over my shoulder. Ava was staring at Ethan, and I watched the light die in her eyes. She forced a painful, hollow smile and nodded along with him. "Right," she whispered. "Just best friends." When Ava eventually made it home that night, I was sitting on the sofa watching the late-night news. She gave me a weak smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Since when do you care about the news? I thought you hated politics." I kept my eyes on the screen. Maybe I'm just tired of all the lies in my real life. I figured I might find something honest in the headlines for once. Ava flinched as if I'd struck her. She let out a long, weary sigh and sat down across from me. "James, you're overthinking things. Ethan and I are just friends. Sarah has a big mouth, and she loves to start drama. Don't listen to her." "Right. If you say so," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "I mean it," she insisted. I turned to look her dead in the eye. "Tell me, Ava, do you honestly believe a man and a woman can ever be just friends?" Ava blinked, her expression shifting through a dozen different emotions before she settled on one. "I do," she said. I could tell she wasn't even really there with me anymore. Her mind was already back at that party with Ethan. It was pathetic, really. Everyone knew she was in love with him, and everyone knew she'd been waiting for him to notice her for years. To Ethan, she was just the loyal girl who would always be there. He soaked up her attention and her devotion, but he never actually committed to her. I wondered if he even cared about her at all, or if he just liked having a backup plan. My thoughts were interrupted by the buzzing of her phone. She checked the screen, and I saw her entire demeanor shift. She grabbed her keys and headed for the door. James, look, She trailed off, looking torn. Let me guess, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Another work emergency? She didn't correct me. Just go, Ava. Don't let your job wait. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but the phone rang again, demanding her attention. Even from across the room, I could hear Ethan's voice. Julie, did you get my text? I need you here. I'm on my way, she said instantly. She paused at the door, glancing back at me. James, don't stay up late. Get some rest. I'll bring you a matcha latte tomorrow morning, your favorite. Even now, her final thought was of Ethan's favorite drink, not mine. I just nodded silently as she vanished out the door. Standing there in our empty apartment, I felt a wave of crushing bitterness wash over me. It was a painful realization. Even when she said my name, I didn't know if she was talking to me or to the ghost of the man she actually wanted. I knew I was only hurting myself, but I couldn't stop my thumb from hovering over Ethan's Twitter profile again. He had posted another photo of him and Ava, looking perfectly happy. I shut off my phone and pressed my palms against my eyes. A second later, my phone buzzed. It was a DM from Ethan. Have fun stalking my profile. I didn't dignify it with a response, just flipped my phone over and stared at the ceiling. He wasn't done, though. Another message popped up. You've got guts, I'll give you that. Why don't we meet up? I can tell you everything you want to know about Ava and me. I met him at a small cafe downtown. He was already there, looking effortlessly cool as he watched me approach. He gave me a slow, mocking look. Man, Ava's standards have really plummeted since I left for London, he said with a smirk. I sat down across from him, my jaw tight. Look, Ethan, why am I here? He leaned back, clearly enjoying the power trip. Come on, James. We both know why she's with you. It's because your name sounds like mine and you're a safe bet. To her, you're just a low-budget version of me. And if I am? I asked, my voice cold as ice. Ethan just laughed, looking incredibly smug. Every guy Ava has ever dated has been a placeholder. All it takes is one word from me, when I don't like him, and she'll dump you before the sun goes down. If you know how she feels about you, why are you playing these games? I demanded. His smile widened, becoming something cruel. She likes the chase, and I like the attention. It's a win-win. Why do you even care? I was done listening to him. I stood up to leave, but he called out after me. Wait, you know, if you beg me, I might let you keep her for a little while longer. I stopped and turned back to him, my fists clenched at my sides. What is wrong with you? He just chuckled, a dark, manipulative sound. It's just a game, James. Watching a woman lose her mind over you, it's a rush. You should try it sometime. I ignored him and headed for the door, but he lunged forward and grabbed my arm. I tried to pull away, but his grip was like iron. He looked at me with pure malice. Why don't we settle this right now? Let's see who she really wants. You're insane, I spat, ripping my arm away from him. The moment I broke free, a sharp scream echoed through the cafe. I knew for a fact I hadn't touched him, but Ethan had already thrown himself back into the table. Ethan, what's going on? I heard Ava's voice and my heart sank. She was glaring at me with such pure hatred that it felt like a physical blow. To her, I was the villain in this story. I didn't do anything, I said, but my voice felt weak even to my own ears. She looked from me to Ethan, her eyes narrowed with distrust. Ethan was currently putting on the performance of a lifetime, clutching his side and groaning. Julie, it really hurts. Ethan's eyes actually started to well up. Julie, I didn't think you'd come, he whimpered. Ava was at his side in a heartbeat, her face etched with worry. Oh my God, Ethan, I'm so sorry. Tell me where it hurts. My ankle. I think it's broken. Ethan gasped, leaning into her. Ava didn't even look at me as she helped him up. I'm getting you to an R right now. Ethan gripped her arm and pointed a trembling finger at me. But what about him? I just stood there and watched the show. It was like something out of a bad soap opera. The wounded hero and the devoted woman. A guy walking past even stopped and looked at Ava. Man, you're lucky to have a girl who cares about you that much, he said, shaking his head. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, followed by a dark sense of amusement. Even to a total stranger, they looked like the couple. Meanwhile, her actual boyfriend, was just a ghost in the background. Ava turned on me then, her eyes flashing with a protective fury. If you have a problem with me, take it up with me. Why would you lash out at Ethan? Do you have any idea what you've done? If he's seriously hurt, I will never forgive you. I didn't even try to defend myself. What was the point? Ethan leaned into her, playing the part of the noble victim. It's okay, Julie. Don't be mad. I'm sure James didn't mean to trip me. You're too good for this world, Ethan, Ava whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She looked at him with such tenderness it made my stomach turn. I can't believe you had to deal with people like this all by yourself in London. You've been through enough. I couldn't stomach another second of this. If you're so worried, take him to the hospital. Send me the bill for the copay and whatever else. I'm done. I turned to walk away. Stop right there. Ava barked. Apologize to him. I turned back, genuinely shocked by the ice in her voice. You can't be serious. I said apologize to Ethan. Now, I actually felt a laugh bubble up in my throat from the sheer absurdity of it all. Ava, why don't you check the security footage before you start pointing fingers? I suggested. I saw you push him, James. Just apologize and we can move on. I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do. If you think I committed an assault, then call the cops. I walked out and hailed a cab before she could say another word. As I sat in the back seat, the driver caught my eye in the mirror. Hey kid, you okay? You're crying pretty hard. I wiped my cheek, surprised to find it was soaking wet. I'm fine, ikrokt. Sure you are. Trouble with the lady? He pressed. I just stared out at the passing Chicago skyline. This wasn't just a fight. The second she demanded I apologize to that man, she had effectively ended our relationship. Back at the apartment, I started throwing my belongings into suitcases, desperate to get out of the place I once called home. My phone buzzed with a call from my mother. James, have you booked your flight yet? Yeah, Mom. I'm leaving on the 8th. That's soon. Send me the details, and I'll come get you. Mom, it's okay. I could just take an Uber. Oh, I'm not the one picking you up. The girl I told you about wants to meet you at the airport. Is there anything special you want me to have ready at the house for you? I looked around the half-empty apartment. I don't need anything, Mom. Just a bed to sleep in. All right, honey. See you soon. For the first time in 7 years, I was choosing myself over Ava. I used to think Chicago was my forever home, and the thought of leaving used to terrify me. But as I walked down the jet bridge, all I felt was a massive sense of relief. Letting go was actually a lot easier than I had ever expected. I was traveling light, just one checked bag and a carry-on. I was looking out the window at the city one last time when my phone buzzed. It was Ava. Even now, she was texting me to demand that I apologize to Ethan. A flight attendant stopped by my row. Sir, we're about to push back. Please turn off your electronic devices or switch them to airplane mode. I followed her instructions, watching the screen go black. For the first time in years, I felt a strange, beautiful sense of peace. Back in Chicago, Ava tried calling me over and over, but I didn't pick up. When she finally tried again, she was met with a recording saying the number was no longer in service. She slammed her phone down on the table, her face twisted in frustration. Ethan, sitting across from her, gave her a playful kick under the table. Hey, are you even listening to me? Ethan teased. Ava rubbed her temples, looking exhausted. Sorry, what were you saying? Ethan gave her a knowing smile. I'm right here in front of you, Julie, but your head is clearly somewhere else. Ava bit her lip, a look of genuine concern crossing her face. James never turns his phone off. He always said he wanted to be reachable in case I ever needed anything. But it's been off all day. I have this bad feeling that something is wrong. Before she could spiral further, Ethan cut in with a dismissive laugh. Look, you're a girl, so you don't really get how guys think. He's just playing a game. He turned his phone off so you'd panic and come crawling back to him with an apology. He wants you to beg for his forgiveness. He wants to feel like he's in control for once. Ethan continued. Ava felt the tension leave her shoulders as she considered his words. She gave a cold, cynical laugh. You're right. He's just being dramatic again, probably still pouting about yesterday. She convinced herself she was in the right and that she shouldn't be the one to back down. By the way, Ethan said, changing the subject, there's this new boba place around the corner that everyone is talking about. They don't do delivery, so you have to wait in line. I'm not really in the mood to go out. So could you grab me a cup? Ava never could say no to him, and today was no different. She pushed any lingering thoughts of me out of her head and headed out to stand in line for his drink. While she was doing that, my plane was touching down in San Francisco. I was so eager to get home that I didn't even wait for my bag at the carousel. I just grabbed a cab and headed straight to my parents' place. Standing in front of the familiar gates, I took a deep, centering breath. I was back in my own world, and I promised myself I would never let anyone treat me like a backup plan again. I hadn't even walked half a block when someone lunged out of the shadows and snatched my suitcase. I chased after the thief as fast as I could, but I tripped and went sprawling onto the pavement. My knees were scraped and my palms were bleeding, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the panic of losing that bag. It held all my old family photos, the most precious things I owned. I watched the thief disappear around a corner and realized I wasn't going to get it back. The weight of everything that had happened finally broke me. I slumped against a brick wall and slid down to the ground, burying my face in my arms as I sobbed. I tried to keep it quiet, but my sleeves were quickly soaked with my tears. I was drowning in my own misery when a soft, kind voice broke through the silence. "Hey, are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help?" I looked up through blurred eyes and saw a woman standing over me. She looked to be in her early 30s, dressed in an elegant camel-colored coat and a silk scarf. She had an air of quiet intelligence and grace about her. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you," she said softly. "It's late, and this isn't the best neighborhood to be alone in. If you don't want to talk about it, I can at least call you an Uber and make sure you get home safe." I stared at her for a moment, my sobs finally subsiding. For some reason, I felt like I could trust her, and before I knew it, I was telling her everything about Ava, Ethan, and the stolen suitcase. She listened patiently, nodding as I spoke. "I'm so sorry," she said when I finally finished. "I'm actually a lawyer, and I know this precinct well. If you're up for it, I can take you to file a report right now." She handed me a clean tissue, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone was actually looking out for me. She was so patient and kind, never once making me feel like I was a burden. "Try to focus," she said gently, noticing my bloodshot eyes. "Can you remember what the guy was wearing or what he looked like?" "Let's head to the station," she suggested. "I can help you look through the mugshots. It's a lot better than just wandering the streets." I knew she was right, so I took a deep breath and followed her to the local precinct. The hours ticked by as we went through the paperwork and looked at photos. When I finally checked the clock, I realized it was past 2 in the morning. "I'm so sorry for keeping you out this late," I said, feeling guilty. "Please, don't feel like you have to stay." She just gave me a small smile and stayed right where she was. Just as the sun was starting to come up, the police managed to track down my suitcase. When the officer handed it back to me, I felt a massive lump in my throat. "Thank you," I told her, my voice cracking. "I don't know what I would have done without you." "Don't worry about it," she said. "Just make sure everything is still inside while I finish up the paperwork." By the time I'd checked my belongings, she had already taken care of all the remaining legal details. We walked out of the precinct into the cool morning air. "Thank you for everything," I said, looking at her as we stood under a street lamp. "I'd really like to stay in touch, if that's okay. Can I get your name and number?" I worried I was being too forward, so I quickly added, "I just want to make sure I thank you properly once I'm settled in. I don't really have anything to give you right now." She just gave me a warm smile and pulled a business card from her pocket. "It was no trouble at all," she said. "My contact info is on the card. Don't hesitate to call if you need anything." I took the card and looked at it. Her name was Hannah Reynolds. I was surprised to see her title listed as senior partner in a major law firm. I had always pictured lawyers as being sharp and aggressive, but Hannah was the complete opposite. She was kind, patient, and incredibly warm. It was nearly 4 in the morning now, and finding a cab was going to be impossible. "We're practically friends now, and I'm heading in your direction anyway," Hannah said. "Why don't I just give you a ride?" There was something so comforting about her presence that I found myself nodding. She told me to wait at the curb while she went to get her car from the parking garage. We talked about everything and nothing on the drive back, and for the first time in days, I felt truly at ease. When we pulled into my parents' apartment complex, I noticed she knew exactly where she was going, navigating the side entrance like she'd been there 100 times before. I was curious about how she knew the area, but I didn't want to be nosy. I was just about to thank her when a familiar voice called out, "Hannah, what are you doing here at this hour?" I looked up and saw my mother standing there, looking bewildered. I couldn't believe I was seeing the two of them together. "Mom, you know Hannah?" I asked. My mother nodded enthusiastically. "Of course I do. If it wasn't for Hannah, I probably would have lost everything in the divorce, including custody of you. She made sure I kept the house and the savings," my mom continued. "I actually wanted to set the two of you up months ago, but you were so head over heels for Ava that you wouldn't even listen to me." I looked down, feeling a wave of embarrassment. She was right. I had been so blind back then. Looking back, I realized that life had been trying to steer me away from Ava for a long time. I was just too stubborn to see it, and I just laughed it off. I was swamped with work back then anyway. Besides, meeting under those circumstances probably would have been awkward. She managed to smooth over the tension and quickly filled my mother in on how we'd met that night. My mother didn't push the issue. She just smiled at Hannah. "Well, since you're already here, why don't you come up for breakfast? My husband has been wanting to thank you properly for years, and now you've rescued James too. We won't take no for an answer." I liked the idea of her staying, but I didn't want to pressure her. I really did owe her a huge debt of gratitude. Hannah gave us a polite smile and shook her head. "I would love to, really, but the sun is already up," she said. "If I don't go home and change before heading to the office, everyone is going to think I pulled another all-nighter." I understood. As a high-powered attorney, her professional image was everything. My mother didn't push her, but she made me promise to take Hannah out for a proper thank-you dinner later. As she was leaving, I got the feeling that Hannah wanted to say something else, but she just gave me a final wave and drove off. I spent the next few days resting and getting my head on straight. By Saturday, I was ready for my book signing at a bookstore downtown. As a columnist, these signings were the only time I really got to connect with my readers in person. Most of them have been following my work for years. I was pleasantly surprised by the turnout. The line stretched all the way to the back of the store. I took my time with everyone, posing for photos and writing personalized messages in every book. After a few hours, though, my wrist was starting to throb. I was just about to reach for the next book when someone set a brand new ergonomic wrist rest down on the table. I usually got a few small gifts at these events, but I'd never had anyone bring me something so practical. I looked up, expecting to see a fan, and found myself staring into Hannah's bright, smiling eyes. She looked absolutely radiant. I was stunned to realize she was a fan of my work. For a second, I forgot where I was. "You've been at this for hours," she said softly. "I figured your wrist could use some support." I rested my arm on the pad and felt the tension ease immediately. "This is perfect, thank you. What should I write in your copy?" I asked. "Just dedicate it to me," she said with a wink. I was just going to drop it off and leave, but I decided to wait in line like everyone else, she added. I noticed people were starting to whisper. A woman as striking as Hannah tended to draw a crowd. Sensing the curious stares from the crowd, Hannah turned to the people in line and started handing out cups of warm milk tea. "A little something for the wait," she said with a grin. "And thank you all for being such great fans of James's work." It was a brilliant move. She had managed to deflect any gossip while also making everyone in the room like her. She gave me a subtle wink, and I knew exactly what she was doing. I didn't want to embarrass her in front of my fans, so I just played along with the happy couple vibe she was putting out. As people sipped their tea, the teasing began. Someone joked that we looked like the main characters from my latest novel, and another person asked if we were engaged. I just laughed and shook my head. "I'm actually single," I told them. "The romance in that book is strictly fiction." Over the next few months, Hannah and I became inseparable. She showed me all the hidden gems of the city, taking me on long walks through the neighborhood until I knew every street by heart. One evening, she looked at me and asked, "James, be honest. Do you still have feelings for Ava?" "She's ancient history," I said firmly. I wanted her to know that I had truly moved on. The moment I got on that plane in Chicago, I had closed the book on Ava for good. Hannah looked visibly relieved. "In that case, would you consider giving me a chance?" I reached across the table and took her hand. "Hannah, the reason I've been spending so much time with you is because I already think we have a real shot at being happy together." But her next words caught me completely off guard. "Good to know," she said with a mysterious smile. I'll make sure my niece stops calling her ex-boyfriend then. I blinked, totally confused. Wait, what does that have to do with us? A sudden, terrifying thought hit me. Wait, Hannah, Ava. I stared at her, my mouth hanging open. Tell me your niece isn't Ava Harrison. Hannah gave me a sheepish nod. I should have been upfront with you, she said softly. But I only put the pieces together recently. I had a feeling you two had a history. I shifted in my seat, suddenly very aware of the family connection. So you're her aunt? Yeah, she admitted. I knew she had an aunt in California, but I never imagined you'd be so young. It was funny. When you're dating someone, a 10-year age gap seems like a lot, but when they're a relative, you just think about how good their genes are. There's only about 10 years between us, so we've always been close, Hannah explained. I knew she was in a long-term relationship, but she was always pretty vague about the details. I've been traveling so much for work that I haven't really kept up with her personal life. I gave a hollow laugh. That makes sense. She was never exactly eager to introduce me to her family. But don't worry, I'm sure she'll be bringing Ethan home to meet you any day now. Hannah looked at me with such genuine sympathy that I had to look away. You've been through a lot, haven't you? I just shrugged. It is what it is. I was angry for a while, but I've moved past it. Hannah tried to offer a supportive smile, but it fell flat. We both knew there was nothing funny about being a placeholder for 7 years. I took a deep breath and looked her in the eye. Knowing who I am, do you still want to do this? More than ever, she said firmly. You've already said you'd give us a shot, James. And I'm not about to let anyone take you away from me. For the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to be someone's first choice. It was the warmest feeling I'd ever known. Are you sure you're okay with this? Hannah asked. It's a lot to take in. I shook my head and a small smile touched my lips. I was just wondering what Ava is going to call me at Thanksgiving dinner. Is she going to have to call me Uncle James now? The thought of Ava's face when she realized her ex was now her uncle was enough to make me burst out laughing. Hannah joined in, the tension finally breaking. If that's what you want, James, I'm sure we can make it happen. The rest of the dinner was incredible. We had a connection that went way beyond some awkward setup. It didn't feel like we were just getting to know each other. It felt like we were two people who had finally found each other after a long, difficult journey. As we stood by her car, Hannah looked at me seriously. James, I don't want my family connection to Ava to get in the way of what we have. If it's too much for you, I'll understand. I just smiled and took her hand. You're her family, Hannah. That's just a fact. But I'm not going to let her past with me ruin my future with you. Hannah's eyes sparkled with determination. Then it settled. The past stays in the past. I thought I'd finally found peace, but I should have known Ava wasn't going to let me go that easily. She showed up on my doorstep a week later. You know what I'm capable of, Hannah? Ava spat, her face twisted in rage. The only reason James isn't back with me already is because I'm trying to be respectful of you. Hannah didn't even flinch. And the only reason I haven't told James exactly what kind of person you are is because we share the same blood. Ava let out a scream of frustration and swung a wild punch at Hannah. Hannah was quick, but she wasn't fast enough to avoid the blow entirely. Ava's knuckles caught her right on the cheekbone, leaving a bright red mark. Before I could even react, the two of them were in a full-blown scuffle. The neighbors were starting to peek out their windows, and my heart was pounding out of my chest. I didn't even grab a jacket before I sprinted down the stairs and shoved my way between them, pushing Ava back. Some neighbors ran over to help pull them apart, though both women looked like they were ready for round two. James! Ava cried out, her voice full of desperation. Ava looked at me like I was her savior, but her face fell when I walked right past her and went straight to Hannah. I gently touched the bruise forming on Hannah's face. Are you okay? Did she hit you anywhere else? Hannah winced, but gave me a small smile. I'm okay, James. It's just a scratch. I didn't give Ava so much as a glance. She might as well have been invisible. Ava was clutching her own cheek, where Hannah had managed to land a solid slap during the fight. I could tell that slap had bruised more than just her ego. This wasn't how she had pictured this confrontation going at all. For 7 years, I had been her loyal shadow, my eyes always fixed on her and her alone. But now I was looking at Hannah like she was the only person in the world. Ava looked like she was about to explode. She took a step toward me, her eyes filled with a desperate need to explain herself. Hannah stepped in front of me, a human shield against her niece. I stayed right where I was, looking at Ava from behind Hannah's shoulder. Ava's voice was trembling as she spoke. "James, please. I'm so sorry. I know I messed up, but I'm here to take you home." It was the first time in 7 years she'd ever apologized, but it was too little, too late. "There's no home to go back to, Ava," I said, my voice cold and firm. "We're done. We've been done for a long time." I turned my back on her and led Hannah into the apartment building, the place that was now her home. Once inside, I grabbed the first aid kit and started cleaning her cut with a sterile wipe, my hand surprisingly steady. As I worked, our eyes met, and the air between us suddenly felt electric. I could hear her heart racing, echoing my own. Hannah was looking at me with such raw, open affection that I felt my face start to heat up. The silence was heavy with everything we hadn't said yet. "You're probably going to think I'm crazy," she whispered, "but I've been in love with you for years. But Ava saw you first, and you were so devoted to her. I decided I'd rather keep my feelings to myself than get in the way of your happiness. But you chose me, James, and now that I have you, I'm never letting you go." 3 months later, a wedding invitation arrived at Ava's door. The names on the card were mine and Hannah's. The invitation was elegant, featuring a photo of Hannah and me looking blissfully happy. Ava spent that night at a local dive bar, trying to drown her regrets in expensive bourbon. But the more she drank, the more the memories of us haunted her. Her friends tried to comfort her, telling her it was time to move on and that life goes on, even when your ex is marrying your aunt. "It just wasn't meant to be, Ava," one of them said. "Yeah, family dinners are going to be weird, but you can't stay miserable forever." Every word felt like a knife to her heart. She finished her drink in one gulp and ordered another, eventually passing out right there at the bar. Her friends had to half carry her to a room in the hotel upstairs so she could sleep it off. She didn't wake up until 2 days later, on the eve of our wedding. She scrambled to pack a bag and caught the first flight to Miami, where we were holding the ceremony. By the time she made it to the venue, the reception was already in full swing. From the back of the room, she watched as Hannah and I exchanged vows and sealed them with a kiss. The room erupted in cheers, but Ava just sat in the shadows, her heart heavy with a pain she couldn't name. We made our way around the room, thanking our guests and sharing a toast with each table. When we got to Ava, she raised her glass with a trembling hand. "I hope you two will be very happy," she whispered. "Thanks for making the trip, Ava," I said, giving her a polite smile. She gave me a sad, lingering look before turning away. Hannah and I continued our rounds, her hand never leaving mine. It was the happiest day of my life, and I knew I had finally found the woman I was meant to be with. Once the chaos of the wedding was over, we started planning our honeymoon. "Where should we go, Mr. Miller?" Hannah asked, leaning against me. "We have 3 weeks. I'm all yours. What do you think about a trip around the world?" I joked. "I think that sounds perfect," she said, her eyes shining with love. We walked out of the venue together, hand in hand, ready to start a new life. For the first time, I knew exactly who I was and where I belonged, and I knew that the rest of my life was going to be beautiful. Never force yourself to like something just to please someone else. Real love isn't about molding you into someone's shadow. It's about someone seeing exactly who you are and choosing you anyway. Walking away from the wrong person isn't a loss. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself. May you never be a backup plan again, but always the first and only choice.